The massive dome of the Galactic Council chambers stretched high above the negotiation table where 12 different species sat in their designated seats. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to convert the various alien languages into something everyone could understand. Admiral Kim Dae-ho sat perfectly still in his chair, his dark eyes scanning the faces of the alien delegates who had been talking for the past 3 hours about how much humanity owed them. Ambassador Park So-min shifted slightly in her seat next to him, her expression calm but her fingers drumming once against the metal table. Captain Lee Woo-jin stood behind them both, his military uniform crisp and his hands clasped behind his back, as he watched everything with the careful attention of a soldier who had seen too much war. Chancellor Vextar of the Zolonian Empire raised one of his forearms and pointed directly at the human delegation. His blue-scaled face twisted into what humans had learned was meant to be a superior smile. The human species has caused great damage to our territories during this conflict. Your ships attacked our mining colonies without warning. Your soldiers invaded our outposts and destroyed our equipment. Now you must pay for these crimes. Daio. Other alien delegates nodded their various heads and made sounds of agreement. High Arbiter Kreloth of the Axiom Collective leaned forward on his massive frame, his 6 eyes focusing on Admiral Kim Dae-ho. The humans started this war when they refused to accept our lawful expansion into the Outer Rim territories. Now, they must accept the consequences of their aggression. Admiral Kim Dae-ho listened to every word without changing his expression. He had been sitting in this same chair for 23 days now, listening to the same accusations and demands. The aliens wanted humanity to give up 12 colony worlds, pay massive amounts of resources as compensation, and accept restrictions on their military that would make them helpless against future attacks. Ambassador Park So-min finally spoke, her voice steady and professional. The territories you call your lawful expansion were inhabited by human colonists for over 50 years before your species arrived. We have the documentation to prove our claims. Chancellor Vextar waved dismissively, with 2 of his arms. Your documentation means nothing. Might makes right in this galaxy, and we have shown that we are mightier than your little human empire. You attacked us because you were desperate, and now you have lost. Accept our terms or face complete destruction. The delegate from the Corvin Syndicate, an insect-like creature called hive speaker Zixtal, clicked her mandibles together rapidly. The humans are a young species who do not understand their place in the galactic order. They must learn humility through suffering, or they will never truly accept peace. Captain Lee Woo-jin's jaw tightened slightly, but he remained silent. He had served in the Outer Rim territories and had seen what the alien expansion had really looked like. Families forced from their homes, farms burned, and children separated from their parents. The aliens called it lawful expansion, but humans had another name for it. Admiral Kim Dae-ho had been part of the military response when human colonies started sending distress signals. He had commanded the fleet that arrived to find entire settlements, wiped out and alien forces building military bases on human farmland. The first shots of the war had indeed been fired by human ships, but only after finding mass graves of colonists who had refused to leave their homes. High Arbiter Kreloth produced a large datapad and placed it on the table with a heavy thud. These are our final terms. The human delegation has 48 hours to accept them in full, or we will resume military operations against all human territories. This time we will not stop until your species is completely subjugated. The terms were exactly what Admiral Kim Dae-ho had expected. Surrender of the 12 most productive human colonies, payment of enough resources to bankrupt the human economy for the next century, reduction of the human military to less than 10% of its current size, and acceptance of alien oversight of all future human expansion. Ambassador Park So-min read through the terms carefully, though she had seen similar demands every day for the past 3 weeks. The aliens believed they held all the advantages. Their combined fleets outnumbered human forces by more than 3 to 1. Their technology was older and more established. Their territories were larger and more heavily defended. What the aliens did not know was that Admiral Kim Dae-ho had not come to Nexus Prime to negotiate a surrender. He had come to buy time and gather intelligence about alien capabilities and strategies. Every day of talks had provided valuable information about alien military deployments, political relationships, and technological limitations. The human delegation had also used the time to quietly confirm the locations of key alien military installations, government centers, and industrial facilities. Captain Li Wu-jin had spent his evening sending coded messages back to human space, reporting everything they had learned about alien defenses and response capabilities. Chancellor Vextar stood up to his full height, which was nearly 8 feet tall, and looked down at the humans with obvious contempt. Your silence tells us everything we need to know. You cannot accept these terms because you still believe you can somehow fight us and win. This delusion will cost your species everything. Admiral Kim Dae-ho finally moved, pushing back his chair and standing up slowly. The room became completely quiet as all eyes focused on him. He had barely spoken during the entire negotiation process, letting Ambassador Park So-min handle most of the talking while he observed and calculated. You are correct about one thing, Admiral Kim Dae-ho said in a calm, clear voice. We cannot accept these terms. The alien delegates exchanged glances and made various sounds of satisfaction. They had expected this moment and were prepared to issue ultimatums and threats that would force the humans to reconsider. However, Admiral Kim Dae-ho continued, you are completely wrong about our reasons. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device that he placed on the table. With a simple press of a button, the device activated and began projecting a holographic display showing star charts and fleet movements that made several alien delegates lean forward in confusion. We did not come here because we were losing this war, Admiral Kim Dae-ho said, his voice still calm but now carrying an edge that made Captain Li Wu-jin smile slightly. We came here because we wanted to give peace a chance before we showed you what losing a war against humanity actually looks like. Ambassador Park So-min stood up next to him, her diplomatic mask finally falling away to reveal something much more dangerous underneath. For 3 weeks we have listened to your demands and your threats. We have tried to find a reasonable solution that would allow all our species to coexist peacefully. She gestured toward the holographic display, which was now showing real-time positions of alien fleets and defenses. Instead, you have chosen to treat us as defeated enemies who should be grateful for your mercy. You have demanded our submission and threatened our extinction if we do not comply. High Arbiter Kreloth's 6 eyes widened as he began to understand what the holographic display was showing. The humans had been tracking alien military movements with an accuracy that should have been impossible given their supposedly inferior technology. This is impossible, Chancellor Vextar said, his voice rising in pitch. Your intelligence capabilities are too limited to have gathered this information. Admiral Kim Dae-ho smiled for the first time since arriving at Nexus Prime, and it was not a pleasant expression. You have made the same mistake that many others have made throughout human history. You assumed that because we were willing to talk, we were unable to fight. Captain Li Wu-jin stepped forward and activated his own communication device. All human vessels, this is Captain Li Wu-jin with authorization code Phoenix 77. Execute withdrawal protocol immediately. The alien delegates watched, in growing alarm as the holographic display began showing human ships throughout the galaxy, changing course and heading toward previously unknown destinations. What they had assumed was a scattered and defensive fleet was revealing itself to be something else entirely. Ambassador Park So-min gathered her papers and data pads with deliberate care, her movements precise and controlled. We came here believing in diplomacy. We leave understanding that some lessons can only be taught through action. She looked directly at Chancellor Vextar, her voice becoming cold and final. You wanted to know what humanity looks like when we stop trying to be reasonable. You are about to find out. Admiral Kim Dae-ho deactivated the holographic display and put the device back in his jacket. You have 72 hours to reconsider your positions and prepare new terms that acknowledge reality. After that, we handle this our way. The 3 humans walked toward the exit of the chamber while the alien delegates sat in stunned silence. At the doorway, Admiral Kim Dae-ho turned back one last time. When we return, he said quietly, you will discover the difference between fighting humans who are trying to minimize casualties and humans who are trying to end a war. The door closed behind them with a soft sound that seemed to echo through the suddenly very quiet chamber. The message from Admiral Kim Dae-ho reached Earth exactly 18 hours after the human delegation had walked out of the Galactic Council chambers. General Choi Min-ho read the coded transmission 3 times before activating the secure communication system that connected him directly to the highest levels of human military command. Within minutes, his office filled with holographic projections of fleet commanders, intelligence directors, and scientific advisors from across human space. Dr. Yoon Hai-won appeared from the secret research facility on Luna, her face showing the exhaustion that came from months of working on projects that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The aliens rejected our final diplomatic offer, General Choi Min-ho announced to the assembled commanders. Admiral Kim Dae-ho has confirmed that they believe we are a defeated enemy seeking mercy, rather than an equal power seeking peace. Captain Kang Ji-hoon's image flickered slightly as his signal came through from the Outer Rim territories, where his Special Forces units had been conducting training exercises that were not exactly what they appeared to be. My teams are in position and ready to begin Phase 1 operations on your command. Intelligence Officer Nam Yoo-jin activated her own display showing a 3-dimensional map of alien territories marked with thousands of red dots representing military installations, command centers, and strategic facilities. Our intelligence gathering during the negotiation period has been even more successful than we projected. We now have complete tactical information on every major alien military asset within 6 sectors of human space. Dr. Yoon Hai-won rubbed her tired eyes and managed a small smile. The new stealth technology has exceeded all our expectations during testing. Our ships can now approach within weapons range of alien installations without being detected by any known sensor system. The truth that the alien delegates did not understand was that humanity had been preparing for this moment since the first human colonies had been attacked. What they had seen as desperate human aggression had actually been carefully planned operations designed to test alien capabilities and responses while gathering crucial intelligence about their enemies. General Choi Min-ho had spent 2 years developing the strategy that was now being put into motion. Instead of trying to match alien numbers with human ships, they had focused on creating technological advantages that would make numbers irrelevant. Instead of defending human territory and waiting for attacks, they would strike at the heart of alien power before their enemies could organize effective responses. The research facility where Dr. Yoon Hai-won worked had been developing new weapons and defensive systems based on technologies that aliens had dismissed as impossible. Human scientists had approached problems from directions that older galactic civilizations had never considered, creating solutions that existing doctrine claimed could not work. Captain Kang Ji-hoon's special forces had been inserted into alien territories months before the first diplomatic meetings began. They had established hidden bases on uninhabited worlds and conducted reconnaissance missions that mapped every important target within striking distance of human forces. They had also planted monitoring devices that would provide real-time intelligence during combat operations. Intelligence Officer Nam Yoo-jin's network of agents and automated systems had been tracking alien communications and troop movements throughout the entire negotiation period. Every ship movement, every supply convoy, and every change in defensive positions had been carefully recorded and analyzed. The aliens had made their plans based on the assumption that human technology and tactics were inferior to their own. They had positioned their fleets to contain human forces within existing territories while preparing for massive assaults that would overwhelm human defenses through sheer numbers. What they had not realized was that human forces had never been contained. The ships they had been tracking were only a fraction of the actual human fleet, which had been scattered throughout alien space in positions that would allow simultaneous attacks on targets that aliens considered impossible to reach. Fleet Admiral Ro Seung-woo joined the conference from his flagship, which was currently hiding in the shadow of an asteroid field deep within Zilonian territory. All strike groups report ready status. We can begin operations within 6 hours of receiving the execute order. Commander Han Bo-ra's signal came from an entirely different location, though her ship appeared to be in the same system as Admiral Ro's fleet. The new stealth technology did not just hide ships from sensors, it also made their true positions impossible to determine, even when they were communicating with other human forces. The experimental weapons have been tested and calibrated, Commander Han Bo-Ra reported. We can disable alien defense systems without causing permanent damage to civilian infrastructure. This was another crucial element of human strategy. Unlike their enemies, humanity had no interest in conquest or subjugation. They wanted to end the war quickly and decisively, while minimizing casualties and damage that would make future peace impossible. Major Shin Tai-yong commanded ground forces that had been secretly transported to positions near key alien installations. His soldiers had been training for months in environments that simulated alien worlds, learning to operate in different gravities and atmospheric conditions while using equipment designed specifically for rapid assault operations. Ground teams are positioned and ready to secure primary objectives, Major Shin Tai-yong reported. Estimated time for complete mission success is less than 12 hours per target. Tactical Officer Lim Soo-jin had spent weeks coordinating the timing and logistics of simultaneous operations across multiple star systems. The complexity of managing synchronized attacks on dozens of targets while maintaining communication security had required new methods of command and control that pushed human organizational capabilities to their limits. All forces report green. Status for synchronized operations, Tactical Officer Lim Soo-jin confirmed. We can maintain coordination across all targets despite expected communication interference from alien countermeasures. General Choi Min-ho studied the displays showing the positions of human forces and alien targets. The plan that was about to be executed represented the largest military operation in human history, involving more ships, soldiers, and advanced technology than had ever been deployed for a single campaign. The aliens had demanded submission and threatened extinction. If humanity refused to accept their terms, they believed that superior numbers and established technology would allow them to crush human resistance quickly and efficiently. They had not considered the possibility that humans had been several steps ahead of them from the very beginning of the conflict. Every alien attack had been anticipated and prepared for. Every alien strategy had been analyzed and countered before it could be implemented. Dr. Yoon Hai-wan activated another display showing the timeline for deployment of new technologies that would be revealed during the coming operations. The aliens base their tactical planning on technologies and capabilities that are over 200 years old. They have never faced an enemy that could match their scientific advantages. The secret research programs had been developing new approaches to space combat, communications, and defense systems that took advantage of human creativity and adaptability. While alien civilizations had spent centuries perfecting existing technologies, humans had been exploring entirely new possibilities. Captain Kang Ji-hoon's special forces had also been gathering intelligence about alien psychology and decision-making processes. They had learned that alien commanders relied heavily on established procedures and rarely adapted quickly to unexpected situations. Enemy response patterns indicate that they will require at least 72 hours to organize effective countermeasures once our operations begin, Captain Kang Ji-hoon reported. This will give us sufficient time to complete primary objectives before they can mount coordinated resistance. Intelligence Officer Nam Yu-jin had been monitoring alien communications during the negotiation period and had detected signs that alien leaders were already celebrating what they believed would be an easy victory over humanity. They had been discussing how to divide human territories and resources among themselves. Intercepted communications confirm that alien forces are positioned for offensive operations rather than defensive preparations, Nam Yu-jin reported. They expect to begin attacks on human colonies within 96 hours. Fleet Admiral Ro Sung-woo's expression became grim as he considered the implications. The aliens were not just demanding surrender, they were preparing to launch attacks that would target civilian populations if humanity refused to submit. This confirms that diplomatic solutions are no longer possible, Admiral Ro said. We must act before they can begin operations against our colonies. General Choi Min-ho made the decision that would change the course of galactic history. All units are authorized to proceed with Operation Phoenix. Execute on my mark. He paused for a moment, thinking about the consequences of what was about to happen. For 3 years, humanity had been fighting a defensive war while trying to find peaceful solutions to the conflict. Now they would show the galaxy what human warfare looked like when all restraints were removed. The first alien commander to realize that something had gone terribly wrong was Admiral Zekfor of the Zilonian Third Fleet, who was stationed in orbit around the Zilonian capital world of Xerion Prime. His sensors detected nothing unusual until human ships began materializing out of empty space less than 2,000 kilometers from his flagship. Fleet Admiral Ro Sung-woo's strike force had approached through the asteroid field, using stealth technology that made their ships completely invisible to Zilonian sensors. When the concealment fields deactivated, 12 human dreadnoughts and 36 cruisers appeared simultaneously around the Zilonian home fleet. Admiral Zekfor had exactly 14 seconds to process what was happening before human weapons began firing with precision that demonstrated complete knowledge of Zilonian ship designs and defensive capabilities. The first salvo disabled the communication arrays and weapon systems of every Zilonian capital ship, without damaging life support or crew quarters. Commander Han Bo-Ra's experimental stealth dreadnought Indomitable materialized directly above the Zilonian Planetary Defense Command Center. The massive human warship had been hiding in the upper atmosphere for over 6 hours, completely undetected by sensors that should have been able to track anything larger than a shuttle. The Indomitable launched a coordinated strike that knocked out every orbital defense platform around Xerion Prime within 90 seconds. The weapons used were designed to disable rather than destroy, leaving the platforms intact, but completely powerless and unable to target anything. On the surface of Xerion Prime, Major Shin Tai-yong's ground forces emerged from concealed positions that they had been occupying for over a week. Human soldiers appeared simultaneously at every major military installation, government building, and communication center across the planet. The Zilonian defenders found themselves facing enemies who knew the exact layout of their facilities, the locations of their security systems, and the quickest routes to every important target. Human forces moved with precision that indicated months of preparation and intelligence gathering. Major Shin Tai-yong led the assault on the Zilonian High Command Center, a massive fortress that was supposed to be impregnable to any attack. His soldiers used new breaching technology that cut through Zilonian armor like it was paper, while defensive systems that should have stopped any invasion simply failed to function. Similar operations were taking place simultaneously across 12 different star systems as human forces executed coordinated attacks on every major alien homeworld: the Corvin Syndicate, the Axiom Collective, the Thrakari Empire, and 9 other alien civilizations all discovered that human ships had somehow penetrated their most heavily defended territories. Tactical Officer Lim Soo-jin coordinated the complex operation from a mobile command ship that jumped between systems to maintain communication with all human forces. The synchronized timing required split-second precision across distances that spanned hundreds of light years. Each alien species faced the same pattern of attack. Human ships appeared without warning in positions that should have been impossible to reach. Defensive systems failed or were neutralized before they could respond. Ground forces materialized at critical installations with complete knowledge of alien defensive plans. The Axiom Collective's ancient homeworld of Axiom Prime had been protected by defense systems that were over 1,000 years old and had never been penetrated by any enemy. High Arbiter Kreloth watched in disbelief as human forces disabled weapons that had been considered invulnerable since before humanity had discovered space travel. Captain Kang Ji-hoon's Special Forces units demonstrated capabilities that alien military analysts had declared impossible. Human soldiers moved through Axiom defensive positions using technology that allowed them to become invisible, pass through solid barriers, and disable security systems without triggering alarms. The Axiom defenders had been trained to fight enemies, using tactics and weapons that were familiar to galactic military doctrine. They had no experience dealing with humans who approached warfare from completely different directions and used technologies that existing theory claimed could not work. Within 4 hours of the operation beginning, every major alien military installation within 6 sectors of human space had been neutralized or captured. Alien fleets found themselves unable to communicate with their command structures or coordinate any kind of organized response. Commander Han Bo-Ra's stealth dreadnought had demonstrated weapons capabilities that far exceeded anything in the known galactic arsenal. The Indomitable single-handedly disabled the entire Zolonian home fleet, including ships that were 3 times larger and supposedly much more powerful. The human weapons did not destroy alien ships, but instead rendered them completely helpless. By disabling their engines, weapons, communications, and navigation systems, alien crews found themselves trapped in ships that had become floating prisons, unable to fight or flee. Dr. Yoon Hae-won's research had produced technologies that violated several fundamental principles that alien science considered absolute, laws of physics. Human ships moved faster than should have been possible. Human weapons penetrated defenses that should have been impenetrable, and human sensors detected things that should have been invisible. The aliens had based their military, planning on technologies and tactics that had remained essentially unchanged for centuries. They had never faced an enemy that could innovate new solutions during the course of a conflict, or develop capabilities that did not fit existing models of warfare. Fleet Admiral Ro Sung-woo's forces had spent months studying alien ship designs and defensive systems, identifying weaknesses that alien engineers had never considered. Human weapons were specifically designed to exploit these vulnerabilities in ways that made alien defenses useless. Major Shin Tae-yong's ground forces used tactics that combined advanced technology with human creativity and adaptability. They attacked targets from directions that alien defenders had not anticipated and used methods that alien military doctrine claimed were impossible. The Thrakari Empire's fortress world of Thrakos had been considered the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy, with orbital weapons that could destroy entire fleets and ground defenses that had never been breached. Human forces penetrated these defenses in less than 2 hours. Intelligence Officer Nam Yoo-jin's information network had provided detailed intelligence about alien defensive positions, response protocols, and command structures. Human forces knew exactly where to strike, to cause maximum disruption with minimum casualties. The aliens had expected human attacks to follow conventional patterns that would allow them to use their superior numbers and established defensive strategies. Instead, they faced coordinated assaults that targeted their ability to command and control their forces. Within 8 hours, the military capability of 12 alien civilizations had been effectively neutralized. Their ships were disabled, their command centers were occupied, and their communication networks were under human control. Tactical Officer Lim Soo-jin's coordination had ensured that no alien force had been able to mount effective resistance or call for reinforcement from allies. Each species found itself isolated and facing human forces that seemed to anticipate every defensive move. The most shocking aspect of the human assault was the restraint shown by human forces. Despite having overwhelming advantages, human commanders made every effort to minimize casualties and avoid damage to civilian infrastructure. Commander Han Bora's weapons could have destroyed entire cities, but instead precisely targeted only military installations. Major Shin Tae-yong's soldiers could have killed thousands of alien defenders, but instead used non-lethal methods whenever possible. Fleet Admiral Ro Sung-woo had demonstrated that human forces could have wiped out alien fleets completely, but had chosen instead to disable them in ways that allowed crews to survive. The message was clear. Humanity had the power to destroy their enemies but chose mercy instead. Captain Kang Ji-hoon's special forces had infiltrated alien facilities so thoroughly that they could have assassinated political leaders or destroyed critical infrastructure. Instead, they had focused on neutralizing military threats while protecting civilian populations. The operation revealed that humanity had been fighting a defensive war, not because they lacked the capability for offense, but because they had been hoping to find peaceful solutions. When diplomacy failed, humans had shown what their full military potential actually looked like. Dr. Yoon Hae-won's technologies had given humanity advantages that made conventional military thinking obsolete. Human forces could strike anywhere, in the galaxy without warning, penetrate any defense and defeat any enemy while minimizing destruction and casualties. By the time alien leaders began to understand what had happened, the war was effectively over. Human forces controlled every important military asset and communication center within their operational area. The aliens could no longer coordinate resistance or launch counterattacks. Intelligence Officer Nam Yoo-jin's final report confirmed that human forces had achieved complete tactical and strategic superiority across all operational theaters. The aliens had learned too late that they had been fighting an enemy who had been holding back rather than an enemy who was desperate. President An Jae-sung stood before the galactic communication array on Earth, preparing to deliver a message that would reach every inhabited world in known space. Behind him, displays showed the current status of human military operations across 12 star systems, where alien governments were discovering that their most secure facilities were now under human control. The message he was about to broadcast had been carefully written to explain humanity's position to both their former enemies and the neutral species who had been watching the conflict from the sidelines. Every word had been chosen to demonstrate that humans were not conquerors seeking dominion, but defenders who had been forced to act decisively. Citizens of the galaxy, President An Jae-sung began, his voice calm and measured. For 3 years, humanity has been engaged in a conflict that began when our peaceful colonies were attacked without warning or justification. We have tried to resolve this conflict through diplomatic means, seeking a peace that would protect all species while respecting the rights of civilized beings everywhere. Admiral Kim Dae-ho had returned to human space immediately after the diplomatic talks collapsed and was now coordinating the transition from military operations to political negotiations from a position of unquestionable strength. The aliens who had demanded human submission were now discovering what submission actually meant. Chancellor Vexitar of the Zolonian Empire found himself trapped in his own command center, surrounded by human soldiers who had appeared seemingly from nowhere and disabled all his security systems without firing a single shot that endangered civilian lives. His communication equipment worked perfectly, but only to receive messages from human commanders. The species that attacked our colonies believed that superior numbers and older technologies would allow them to force humanity into submission. President An Jae-sung continued. They demanded that we surrender our most productive worlds, pay tribute that would bankrupt our economy, and accept restrictions that would make us defenseless against future aggression. High Arbiter Kreloth of the Axiom Collective sat in his ancient council chamber, staring at holographic displays that showed human forces in complete control of every military installation on Axiom Prime. The defense systems that had protected his world for over a millennium had been neutralized in less than 4 hours. The other alien leaders were experiencing similar revelations as they realized that their supposedly impregnable defenses had been penetrated by an enemy they had underestimated. Human forces controlled their communication networks, their weapon systems, and their ability to coordinate any kind of organized response. Colonel Oh Hyun-woo commanded the human forces that were now occupying alien installations across multiple star systems. His orders were clear: maintain security and prevent any attempts at retaliation while protecting civilian populations and infrastructure from damage. We tried peace, President An Jae-sung said, his voice becoming harder. You chose war. Now, you will accept our peace under our terms, with full understanding of what humanity is capable of when we stop trying to be reasonable. The truth that was now becoming apparent to alien leaders was that humanity had never been the weaker party in this conflict. Every human action that had seemed desperate or aggressive had been part of a carefully planned strategy to test alien capabilities while concealing human advantages. Ambassador Park So-min was preparing new peace terms that would be presented to the alien governments once they had fully understood their new situation. These terms would be fair but firm, designed to ensure lasting peace while making it clear that humanity would not tolerate future aggression. The original human colonies that had been attacked were being reinforced with military installations that would make them impossible to threaten again. Human technology that had been revealed during the recent operations would ensure that no alien force could approach human territory without being detected and intercepted. Fleet Admiral Ro Sung-woo's forces had demonstrated space superiority that made alien naval power irrelevant. Human ships could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning, strike with weapons that alien defenses could not stop, and disappear before any response could be organized. Commander Han Bo-ra's stealth dreadnought Indomitable had become a symbol of human technological advancement that alien military analysts were still trying to understand. The ship had capabilities that violated fundamental principles of physics as aliens understood them. Dr. Yoon Hai-wan's research teams were already developing new technologies that would maintain human advantages for generations to come. The scientific breakthroughs that had made human victory possible were just the beginning of what human creativity could accomplish. Captain Kang Ji-hoon's special forces had established permanent monitoring posts throughout alien territory that would detect any attempt to rebuild military capabilities or develop new weapons systems. Human intelligence networks would ensure that no future threat could develop without being identified and neutralized. Intelligence Officer Nam Yu-jin's analysis of alien communications revealed growing recognition among alien leaders that they had made a catastrophic error in judgment. Many were beginning to understand that humanity had been offering generous terms when they still had the choice to refuse them. Major Shin Tae-yong's ground forces had demonstrated the ability to defeat any alien military unit in direct combat while showing remarkable restraint in protecting civilian populations. Human soldiers had proven themselves superior in every aspect of warfare while maintaining strict ethical standards. Tactical Officer Lim Soo-jin's coordination of simultaneous operations across multiple star systems had shown that human military organization could manage complex campaigns that were beyond the capability of alien command structures. Human strategic thinking operated on levels that aliens found difficult to comprehend. The aliens who had threatened human extinction were now completely dependent on human mercy for their own survival. Their fleets were disabled, their command centers were occupied, and their ability to wage war had been eliminated with surgical precision. President Ahn Jae-sung's broadcast continued with a detailed explanation of what the new galactic order would look like under human leadership. The terms were designed to ensure peace and prosperity for all species, while making it impossible for any group to threaten others with unprovoked aggression. The galaxy will be governed by principles of justice, protection of civilian populations, and respect for the territorial rights of all species, President Ahn Jae-sung declared. Those who choose cooperation will find humanity to be generous allies. Those who choose aggression will discover that we are implacable enemies. Admiral Kim Dae-ho was already meeting with alien representatives who were beginning to request new negotiations under human supervision. The tables had turned completely, with former enemies now seeking terms that humanity might be willing to accept. The speed and completeness of human victory had shocked neutral species throughout the galaxy, who had assumed that the conflict would continue for years before any resolution could be achieved. They were now requesting meetings with human diplomats to discuss their own relationships with the emerging human-led order. Ambassador Park So-min's new diplomatic mission would be to establish relationships with species that had remained neutral during the conflict while ensuring that former enemies understood the consequences of any future aggression against human interests or allies. Colonel Oh Hyun-woo's forces were discovering that many alien populations were actually relieved to be under human protection. The governments that had started the war had not been popular with their own people, and human rule was proving to be more fair and protective than what had existed before. The economic resources that aliens had demanded from humanity were now being redirected to reconstruction efforts and humanitarian aid for populations that had suffered during the conflict. Human generosity was becoming as legendary as human military capability. Fleet Admiral Ro Seung-woo's fleets were establishing patrol routes that would protect trade and prevent piracy throughout the galaxy. Human ships were becoming symbols of security and order, rather than instruments of conquest and destruction. Dr. Yoon Hae-won's technologies were being adapted for civilian use, improving communication, transportation, and industrial capabilities for all species under human protection. The same creativity that had won the war was now being applied to building a better future. President Ahn Jae-sung concluded his broadcast with words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. We did not seek to rule the galaxy. We sought peace. When you denied us peace, you chose to live under our rule. Make no mistake about our resolve or our capabilities. We will maintain this peace, and we will protect it against any threat, from any source, for as long as necessary. The reckoning was complete, and the galaxy was about to enter a new age under human guidance. Counselor Jang Mi-young stood at the podium in the newly constructed Galactic Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime, looking out at representatives from 47 different species who had gathered to witness the formal establishment of the human-led Galactic Protectorate. The chamber was larger than the old council building and designed with transparent walls that symbolized the openness and accountability of the new government. 6 months had passed since human forces had demonstrated their overwhelming military superiority and forced the galaxy to accept a new reality. What had begun as a desperate war for survival had ended with humanity becoming the dominant power in known space, not through conquest, but through the simple demonstration that resistance was futile. Ambassador Park So-min sat at the head of the Diplomatic Council as the newly appointed Galactic Peace Coordinator, a position that gave her authority to mediate disputes between species and coordinate responses to any threats to galactic stability. Her transformation from diplomatic representative to galactic leader reflected the broader changes that had swept through civilized space. Admiral Kim Dae-ho occupied the position of Supreme Military Advisor, responsible for ensuring that the peace was maintained through strength and that no species would ever again be tempted to solve their problems through unprovoked aggression. His presence served as a constant reminder of what happened to those who chose violence over diplomacy. Secretary General Kwon Do-hyun had overseen the development of the new Galactic Constitution, a document that protected the rights of all species, while establishing clear consequences for those who violated the peace. The Constitution had been written with input from every member species, but the final authority rested with humanity. The former alien leaders who had demanded human submission were now petitioners seeking favorable treatment from the government they had tried to destroy. Chancellor Vexter of the Zolonian Empire had formally apologized to the human delegation and requested permission to rebuild his military forces under human supervision. High Arbiter Kreloth of the Axiom Collective had been replaced by a new government that recognized human authority and actively cooperated with human administrators. The ancient axiom resistance to change had been overcome by the simple reality that cooperation brought prosperity, while resistance brought swift and decisive consequences. The Corvin Syndicate had dissolved entirely, with its former territories being administered directly by human governors who had quickly restored order and economic stability. The insect-like species that had been ruled by the Syndicate discovered that human administration was far more fair and efficient than their previous government. Fleet Admiral Ro Sung-woo commanded the Galactic Protection Fleet, a combined force of human ships and allied vessels from species that had joined the Protectorate voluntarily. The fleet served as both a deterrent to potential aggressors and a rescue force for any species that faced natural disasters or external threats. Commander Han Bo-ra had been promoted to head the Advanced Technology Division, responsible for sharing selected human innovations with allied species, while maintaining the technological advantages that ensured continued human dominance. Her stealth dreadnought Indomitable had become the flagship of the Protection Fleet. Dr. Yoon Hae-won directed the Galactic Research Consortium, where scientists from dozens of species worked together on projects that benefited everyone under human protection. The technologies that had won the war were now being adapted to improve communication, transportation, medicine, and industrial capabilities throughout known space. Captain Kang Ji-hoon led the Galactic Security Service, which monitored potential threats and maintained intelligence networks that ensured no hostile force could develop without being detected and neutralized. His organization operated with the same precision and effectiveness that had characterized human military operations. Intelligence Officer Nam Yu-jin had become Director of Information Coordination, responsible for ensuring that accurate information flowed freely throughout the Protectorate, while preventing the spread of propaganda or misinformation that could destabilize the peace. Her networks reached into every civilized world in the galaxy. Major Shin Tae-yong commanded the Rapid Response Forces, elite units that could be deployed anywhere in the galaxy within hours to deal with emergencies, natural disasters, or security threats. These forces had proven their effectiveness by providing humanitarian aid to species facing various crises. Tactical Officer Lim Soo-jin had been appointed as coordinator of interspecies operations, managing the complex logistics of governing a galaxy containing dozens of different species with varying needs, capabilities, and cultural requirements. Her organizational skills had proven as valuable in peace as they had been in war. Colonel Oh Hyun-woo served as administrator of transition territories, overseeing the integration of former enemy worlds into the protectorate structure. His administration had achieved remarkable success in converting hostile populations into cooperative members of the galactic community. The economic transformation of the galaxy under human leadership had exceeded even the most optimistic projections. Trade flowed freely between worlds that had been enemies just months before, protected by human fleets that ensured safe passage for merchant vessels and prevented piracy or extortion. Neutral species that had observed the conflict from the sidelines had quickly sought membership in the protectorate after seeing the benefits that came with human protection. The waiting list for membership had grown to include virtually every independent civilization in known space. The technological sharing programs had accelerated scientific advancement throughout the galaxy as human creativity combined with alien knowledge to produce innovations that neither could have achieved alone. Medical advances had eliminated diseases that had plagued certain species for millennia. Cultural exchange programs had fostered understanding between species that had been suspicious or hostile toward each other for generations. Human emphasis on individual rights and dignity had influenced legal systems throughout the galaxy, improving conditions for billions of sentient beings. Educational initiatives had spread human languages and concepts throughout civilized space, while preserving and protecting the unique cultural heritage of each member species. The galaxy was becoming more unified while remaining diverse. Environmental restoration projects had reversed ecological damage on dozens of worlds, where industrial development had proceeded without proper safeguards. Human environmental science had proven remarkably effective at healing damaged ecosystems. The military reforms had eliminated the arms races and territorial disputes that had characterized galactic politics for centuries. No species needed to maintain large military forces when human protection was available to all peaceful civilizations. Diplomatic protocols had been streamlined to prevent the kinds of misunderstandings and miscommunications that had led to conflicts. In the past, human mediation had resolved border disputes and resource conflicts that had seemed intractable under the old system. Justice systems had been reformed to ensure fair treatment for all species while maintaining the authority needed to prevent crime and maintain order. Human concepts of due process and individual rights had been adapted to work with various alien legal traditions. Scientific research had accelerated dramatically as resources that had been devoted to military purposes were redirected toward peaceful exploration and discovery. Human curiosity and alien knowledge were combining to unlock secrets of the universe that had remained hidden for millennia. Counselor Jang Mi-young began her address to the assembled representatives with words that acknowledged both the painful history that had brought them to this moment and the bright future that lay ahead under human guidance. We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as members of a galactic community united in pursuit of peace, prosperity, and progress, she said. The conflicts that brought us together have ended, but the work of building a better future for all sentient life has just begun. She looked directly at the former enemy representatives who now sat among the allies and partners of humanity. You came to us demanding submission and threatening extinction. We offered you partnership and protection. When you chose aggression, we chose to end your ability to threaten others. Now we offer you the chance to help build something better than what existed before. Ambassador Park So-min rose to address the assembly in her role as Galactic Peace Coordinator. The peace we have established is not built on fear or oppression, but on the simple understanding that cooperation benefits everyone, while aggression benefits no one. Those who choose to work with us will find us to be generous allies. Those who choose to work against us will discover that we are still implacable enemies. Admiral Kim Dae-ho's presence at the ceremony served as a reminder that human military superiority remained absolute and that the peace would be protected by whatever means necessary. The aliens who had learned to respect human diplomatic skills had also learned to fear human military capabilities. Secretary General Kwon Do-hyun presented the final version of the Galactic Constitution, a document that had been ratified by every member species and would govern interspecies relations for generations to come.